Hi, this is BetGo with Grinder School. We're going to do a hand history review. Um, these are hands from two 180s, two 180 turbos on stars, which are very popular. Pretty soft tournaments. This is somebody who I was working with. Pretty good player, winning player. So the issues that we get into are pretty subtle, relatively subtle. So I think they're interesting issues. So there were issues where I felt like there was something that could be done a little differently. Okay. Now here, I think you have to make a decision one way or the other, because this is a three-wheel card flop, and the razor, likely he has an ace or a pocket pair, so he's not going anywhere, because pocket pair is an overpair, and an ace has a straight draw. He may have a big ace or something like that. He's king. So we can't do this. We can't just call the flop and then fold the turn, because he's going to bet the turn. So you're really just hoping to hit an 8 or hit your set or something. So you really have to make a decision. You probably either need to either shove or fold here. Probably just shove, but this was definitely misplayed. And you have to understand the nature of the three-wheel card flop, which I discussed in other videos. It's sort of a key issue, is that it's just very hard to bluff people off of this. Particularly if they show a lot of strength pre-flop, they likely have a big ace or a decent pocket pair, and they may not be folding. This hand, I think this is a little light without the ante. And people, they mostly do push botting, and they want to, you don't want to fold the good hand. But I don't know if you can push this under the gun here without the ante. And this is probably just a fold. It's fairly close. Some things I may mention too, they're not necessarily mistakes, but they're sort of interesting situations. And you need a lot stronger hand without the ante, because there's less to pick up. And people usually play pretty loose at this stage. This is too tight. I mean, we have a quality hand here. This is kind of a mistake you see from people a lot, but we have a quality hand in hijack. So in a tournament, this is a real easy shove. I mean, there is an ICM factor if you shove here. But it's either a raise, I guess a raise to side. You maybe can call this short stack. Mostly raise fold or just shove. But either one's better than just open folding. That's just a little too weak there. Okay, we're going to look at another hand history. Take a second to bring it up. I'm using this feature because I had some trouble with a scan on my system. Okay, so we look at another one. It's another two 180, same player. A lot of interesting issues in these. So. Okay, I don't think we can fold here. I mean, these people are showing a lot of strength, but they're probably donks. And if the guy really had aces or something, he should probably shove, because you're probably going to call him. And people tend to make the small raises these days. They'll do it as a bluff at higher stakes. It doesn't usually mean, the click it back used to mean sometimes aces or something online, but that's usually not what it means. So I think probably the play is just to flat this. It's just you're getting such good odds, 7.4 to 1. You got a quality hand, and you kind of have a guessing game post flop. If you hit or whatever, but I think you still have to call. Okay, so we had a full house against a straight. But they both had worse hands than you did, so... Um, I mean, obviously you probably just give it up on this flop if you just flat there. Again, it's not impossible to shove, but it really depends on your read. They're not necessarily going to be as weak as they are here. And it might be different how you play this kind of action at higher stakes. But generally, I think you have to at least flat that. This play was... I asked him about this, but he said it was based on a read that the guy was a donk. Because it's kind of a close push here to start with. And then you get that limper if limper's strong. But if you have the right read, then that's a fine push. Oh, this is awful. I think the play here is just to shove. And to a certain extent, your inducing range, raise call range should be very tight, like maybe queens to aces, because there's such a big ICM factor. It may be, I mean, when you get shoved on, it's possibly a fold, but there's also an issue if you get pushed around too much, you're going to you're gonna be in trouble. There's a bigger difference between first and second and third, and so I think I'd just shove. I mean, I think as played, I would call this. I'm not sure what Wiz or whatever would tell you, but this guy could be doing it light. I think it's okay to raise and then fall to the big stack, but this hand's too strong for that, and so like I said, probably just shove. And the tournament situation affects things. You can't play hands in the standard way. This is kind of pretty awful. You're really getting pawned when you end up folding a hand that strong. Three-handed. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay. Okay, here, this one I had mostly comments. On the later play. Let's see. Here we're doing a raise fold, and I don't know whether people tend to tell you, 2 plus 2, they might tell you can't do a raise fold. You just have to shove. I mean, you just have to push or fold here. But I think the raise fold's fine. But I think this hand's probably strong enough. I mean, it's once there's some advantage of, I guess, keep maintaining some stack or whatever. But you still have a pretty good stack anyway. But I think you pretty much, once you min raise and get shoved on, you have odds to call, and you're going to get more folds if you just push, because the raise fold looks pretty weak from the big stack. I mean, it's one of these things you can almost always shove over, because the chances are that they're stealing a lot more than they're trapping. They don't have a hand good enough to shove with. It depends. Somebody just type that just raises everything, then it might be different. But I think for 10 big blinds, 10-9 suited is 9-2 suited is a strong enough hand. We're like 42% against a random hand. I mean, it's suited. We got a high card of 9. what the hell? I mean, he's not going to call that much. There's definitely some ICM factor, or he's going to perceive an ICM factor. I'm not sure the ICM factor is that great at this stage. When you get close to heads up and everything, then it becomes greater. But he's going to be a little scared to call. So, rightly or wrongly. So I think a shove is probably a little bit better play there. Well, it's good to have the raise full play in your arsenal, but also just be aware that it looks just very weak when you're a humongous stack and you do that, because you almost always don't have it. So. Here, I think that I would just fold. I mean, there are different ways of playing this. I mean, we obviously can't shove here for 30-some big blinds with junk, but, and I mean, I'm more into different ways of playing. Some people, they tend to have specific ideas about what kind of ways you should play hands. But I would, I think folding's fine and not getting involved with the other big stack. And I mean, there's some other stacks that are pretty big, but you got kind of a junk hand. You're out of position, so I think my play would be to fold. You can make a larger raise, or you could just complete. I mean, completing, you sort of have what you represent, so I'm not real fond of that. And I just think this hand's probably too weak, to do that with. So I kind of would go for a fold. It depends on how this guy. Apparently, this guy was a little difficult to deal with, and sometimes random players play better post flop than these regulars in these things who are very push spot oriented, and may not have the time to think about things post flop, or be very good post flop players. So we see bet, and we do some chips. Now the next hand is against the same player. Now he's got more chips than us. Here, again, I mean, there's controversy over this. And it used to be the min raise from the small blind was considered pretty bad, because the person has odds to call pretty light. And doing this into this big stack, I'm not sure I'm very fond of it. He's got more chips than us, and he gave us some difficulty last time. So, I mean, again, sometimes the old school plays of, well, obviously fold, you're not going to fold this hand, complete or raise large or better, small blind versus big blind. My play actually would be to complete, obviously with the intention of limp raising. And people do this kind of stuff, blind versus blind. I'm very fond of limping if you see my other videos, but in certain situations, like late in the tournament, things like that. And I don't know whether this guy may be kind of passive and he's not going to raise. But I think that's fine, because if he doesn't raise, then our hands is misrepresent it, and he's never going to believe that you've got ace king. If the flop comes, if ace, he's got a worse ace or something, or I mean, ace king's not totally the best hand to like trap with or whatever, but it's just he's not going to believe you have the ace or the king, much less you have ace king, and then if he raises, of course you just probably shove on him. And it's also possible to just open shove, and again, normally in a tournament you wouldn't do that earlier in a tournament, because the hand's just too strong. It'd be a waste of this hand. But I mean, upwind shoving is sort of obviously in vogue, and you'd be shoving. It's 21 big blinds, so you could definitely shove that if you had like ace rag or something. I mean, I'm not sure whether the ICM factor at this stage might be a little too much, but normally that'd be okay. So I mean, why waste a good hand? But in this situation, where you're out of position versus the larger stack, then and who's been giving you some trouble, then that might be a play. But I mean, it's sort of standard what you do here, but just point out there's some alternative ways of playing it. Now we flop a god shot, but this board may hit him. Of course, you don't know what he's really got that he called in the min raise in the big blind with. I mean, Uh, but so it's kind of a hard board to get somebody to fold on sometimes. Um, Now we barrel. I'm not sure whether barreling. It's hard though to. You don't really want to check fold. And he's probably got the ace king. What the hell is this guy doing here? And now, okay, I don't think you can call this because it just doesn't seem like there's no flush draw out there on the flop. If he could have had a straight draw or something, and then it looks like he's putting in. He's not taking your whole stack, so he's just trying to get a little bit of value there. So I don't think you really call with ace high. So he hit queen four. And yeah, he played it pretty well. He seemed like a donk with queen four. I think that's what my student felt. But calling the min raise is just not terrible. I don't know if I would have called the min raise there with queen four, but it's not that terrible. And of course he hits, and we go through a bunch of our stack. So that's a pretty interesting one. So this is like a BetGo short, and I guess this concludes this one. I'm gonna probably continue the hand history review with go over some more hand histories by the same player. These are very interesting issues because he's a good player, but he's making certain mistakes. He knows when to push spot, usually things like that, and so when the situation gets a little more complicated, that's when the mistakes are. So I thought this was a pretty interesting thing to go over, and I guess that's it for this short. And like I said, I'll continue with another part of this one. And these are the two. They're actually 250 180s on stars. This is a new format.